Harley-Davidson just announced the most delusional strategy in motorcycle history. These visions will make you wonder if Milwaukee's lost its mind. From pretending to care about working-class riders to putting full focus on the younger generation, each move is worse than the last. Number 1 could potentially be their doom. Starting off the vision at number 10 is Harley's brilliant idea to suddenly care about community over exclusivity after spending 5 years pricing out everyone who isn't named Chad Worthington III. Their new vision apparently involves making Harley ownership less about showing off your trust fund and more about actual riding. I mean, it's cute that they think they can just flip a switch and suddenly become the people's motorcycle again. It's like your ex texting you at 2 a.m. saying they've changed, right after you see them posting Instagram stories from their 3rd vacation this month. The problem is this vision is vaguer than their maintenance schedules. What does community even mean in Harley terms? Group rides to the country club? Matching leather vests that cost more than most people's cars? Here's the thing about community. It's built on shared experiences and accessibility. You can't have a community when half the people who want to join can't afford the membership fee. It's like starting a book club where the only book costs $1,000. The real kicker is that Harley already had an amazing community. It was called Everyone Who Loved Motorcycles and Dreamed of Owning a Harley. But then they decided that community wasn't profitable enough, so they traded it for premium positioning. Now they want it back, but they don't want to give up the premium pricing. What's really rich is that Harley's marketing team probably spent months researching authentic community building while sitting in conference rooms that cost more per hour than most people make in a week. They'll roll out community initiatives that involve expensive events, premium merchandise, and exclusive experiences that somehow manage to be both community-focused and completely inaccessible to actual communities. It's like hosting a potluck dinner where everyone has to bring Wagyu beef. Think about the strongest motorcycle communities. They're built around bikes that people can actually afford and modify. The Honda Grom community, the old Sportster community, even Kawasaki Ninja 250 riders. These communities thrive because the barrier to entry is low enough that regular people can participate. If you thought Harley's community vision was off, brace yourself. Number 9 reverses everything they've stood for over the past decade. Harley wants to move away from premium positioning towards anti-premium positioning. The same company that just released a $100,000 motorcycle wants to be affordable again. It's like watching a Kardashian try to relate to working-class struggles while wearing a diamond-encrusted face mask. Here's the thing. Harley spent years building this premium image. They hired consultants who probably charged more per hour than most people make in a day. They restructured their entire business model, closed dealerships that weren't upscale enough, discontinued affordable models that were actually selling, and basically told their traditional customer base to take a hike. They went all in on being the Rolex of motorcycles, the Ferrari of cruisers, the Louis Vuitton of two-wheeled transportation. And now suddenly, they want to be the Timex again because, surprise, most people can't drop 6 figures on a bike. But here's the kicker. Their entire business model is built around premium pricing, like a house of cards built on quicksand. Their dealers have premium overhead, fancy showrooms, expensive locations, high-end customer service training. Their supply chain is premium-focused. They've optimized everything for low-volume, high-margin production. You can't just flip a switch and become affordable when your entire infrastructure screams expensive louder than a straight-piped street glide at 6 a.m. in a residential neighborhood. It's like a 5-star restaurant deciding they want to compete with McDonald's, but keeping their Manhattan rent and celebrity chef. The funniest part is that they think customers will just forget the last 5 years of being ignored and overcharged. It's like that friend who only calls when they need something. Except in this case, what they need is for you to forget they've been treating you like garbage. If Harley really wants to move away from premium positioning, they'll need to completely restructure their business. That means closing expensive dealerships, renegotiating supplier contracts, redesigning manufacturing processes, and basically admitting that everything they've done for the past decade was wrong. If their anti-premium vision sounded insane, number 8 takes their new strategy to levels that would make time travelers cringe. This backwards vision makes premium positioning look progressive. Harley wants to bring back the good old days when you could fix your bike with a hammer, some creative cursing, and maybe a beer or two for motivation. This wrench-friendly simplification approach means they're talking about making bikes that don't require a computer science degree to service. Look, I get nostalgia. There's something beautiful about a simple machine you can understand and fix yourself. There's romance in being able to diagnose problems by sound, smell, and the particular way your bike decides to betray you on any given Tuesday. But here's reality check number 1. Modern safety regulations exist for a reason, and that reason is usually that people kept dying in preventable accidents. You can't just ignore ABS, traction control, and emission standards because some guy in his garage wants to feel like it's 1975 again. The EPA doesn't care about your feelings, and neither do the lawyers who sue motorcycle companies when their simple, wrench-friendly bikes turn riders into statistics. Modern safety systems save lives, period. And reality check number 2. The same people complaining about electronics are the first ones to whine when their bike doesn't have heated grips, GPS navigation, Bluetooth connectivity, cruise control, or a USB port to charge their phone. The truth is, electronics make bikes better in every measurable way. They make them safer, more efficient, more reliable, and more enjoyable to ride. Yes, they make them more complex to service, but that's the trade-off. But here's the real joke. Harley's idea of simplification will probably involve removing features while keeping the same price, or worse, charging extra for the privilege of getting less. It's like paying full price for a pizza, but asking them to hold the cheese, sauce, and toppings. Don't click away now because we're just getting to the really shocking stuff. Vision number 7 takes nostalgia to an absolutely absurd level. Heritage, Harley's favorite word after premium, authentic, and please buy our overpriced motorcycles. This Heritage Core Strengthening Initiative means they want to strengthen their core heritage models, which sounds great until you realize they can't agree on what heritage actually means. Are we talking about bringing back the Evo motor that actually worked? The shovelhead that leaked oil but had character? Or are we just slapping heritage badges on the same overpriced bikes they're already making and calling it a day? The real joke here is that Harley's actual heritage is literally about affordable transportation for working people. The original Harley riders weren't wealthy collectors with climate-controlled garages. They were cops, mailmen, farmers, and factory workers who needed reliable transportation and couldn't afford a car. But somehow, Harley's interpretation of heritage strengthening involves making bikes that cost more than most people's annual salary and require specialized tools and dealer service for basic maintenance. It's like McDonald's strengthening their heritage by only serving Wagyu beef burgers for $50 each. Here's what heritage actually means in the motorcycle world. It means making motorcycles that regular people can afford, that they can fix themselves when something goes wrong, that they can customize without taking out a second mortgage, and that they can ride without worrying about depreciation. But Harley's version of heritage is more like a museum exhibit. Look but don't touch, admire from afar, and definitely don't expect to actually own one unless you're in the top 1% of income earners. The most ironic part? While Harley executives sit in boardrooms debating how to strengthen their heritage, actual heritage bikes from the 70s and 80s are selling for fractions of what new models cost, and they're still running strong after decades of abuse. Meanwhile, the new heritage models come with warranties because even Harley knows they're not built to last, like the originals they're supposedly honoring. You won't believe what Harley just revealed. If their heritage push seemed hypocritical, vision number 6 is pure contradiction. Experts are calling it the most insane part they did. Speaking of the working class, Harley apparently wants to remember their roots through a working class affordability return. You know, back when their bikes were for people who actually worked for a living, instead of people who inherited their living from their great-grandfather's railroad fortune. This one's particularly hilarious because it directly contradicts their current strategy. Harder than a Harley transmission contradicts the concept of reliability. It's like watching someone try to diet while eating a cheesecake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They want to be affordable, but they also want to maintain their premium image. Here's a wild idea. Maybe actually make bikes that working-class people can afford? I know, revolutionary concepts. But that would require admitting that their current pricing strategy is about as sustainable as a Harley in a reliability contest against a Honda Civic. The problem is that Harley has spent so long catering to wealthy customers that they've forgotten what working class actually means. Working class doesn't mean people who work at Goldman Sachs. It means people who work with their hands, who have to budget for motorcycle payments, who can't just write a check for a new bike when they feel like upgrading. The real kicker is that Harley's marketing department probably spent more money on focus groups to figure out what working class affordability means than most working class people make in a year. They're literally paying consultants six-figure salaries to explain why people who make $30,000 a year can't afford $50,000 motorcycles. It's like hiring a sommelier to explain why people drink beer instead of vintage wine. Working class customers want value for their money. They want a bike that's going to last longer than the payment plan, that they can afford to maintain without eating ramen noodles for 6 months. That won't leave them stranded on the side of the road, wondering if they should have bought a Toyota Camry instead. But Harley's idea of affordability is probably going to be financing a $30,000 bike over 10 years instead of 7, or offering a stripped-down version of their premium bikes that costs only slightly less but feels like a punishment for not being rich enough for the real thing. If you thought working-class affordability sounded impossible, vision number 5 will make you question everything you know about corporate insanity. Now this one's actually not terrible, which is why it'll probably never happen or will be implemented in the most half-hearted way possible. Harley wants to fix their financing shenanigans through transparent financing reform. You know, those magical interest rates that require a credit score higher than most IQs. Currently, Harley's financing is more confusing than their model lineup, and that's saying something. They advertise rates that basically nobody qualifies for, then act surprised when customers feel deceived and start shopping elsewhere. The typical Harley financing experience goes something like this. You see an ad for 1.9% financing, you get excited. You go to the dealer with your paperwork and hopes up, and suddenly you're looking at 12% APR because you don't have perfect credit, 3 years of tax returns, and a blood sample for DNA verification. It's like online dating. The profile looks great, promises everything you want, but the reality is disappointing, expensive, and leaves you wondering why you didn't just stay home and save your money. The best part is that Harley's idea of transparent financing will probably involve making the fine print slightly larger while keeping all the same predatory practices. They'll call it transparency when they clearly explain exactly how they're going to financially bend you over a barrel, as if being honest about screwing you over somehow makes it better. It's like a mugger politely explaining their fee structure before taking your wallet. But here's the cynical reality. Transparent financing means lower profits, and Harley loves their financing profits almost as much as they love disappointing their customers. The financing department is often where dealers make their real money. They can sell you a bike at cost and still make a fortune on the back end with extended warranties and financing markups. Plus, there's the uncomfortable truth that many Harley customers probably shouldn't be financing expensive motorcycles in the first place. Transparent financing might reveal that a lot of people are buying bikes they can't actually afford, stretching their budgets to the breaking point for the privilege of owning a Harley. This is where Harley's new vision gets absolutely wild if financing reform seemed promising. Vision number 4 is their most ambitious plan yet, and it's either going to save the company or destroy what's left of their reputation. Harley wants to conquer the world through global market expansion, which is adorable considering they're barely holding on to America and their domestic market share is shrinking faster than their customer base's average age is increasing. They're looking at emerging markets, particularly Asia, where apparently people have never heard of Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, or Suzuki. The funny thing about global expansion is that it requires understanding different markets, and Harley's track record on understanding markets is about as good as their track record on making reliable transmissions. In Asia, people want reliable, efficient, affordable transportation that won't break down in the middle of monsoon season. Harley offers expensive, thirsty, maintenance-intensive lifestyle accessories that are about as practical as a chocolate teapot. It's like trying to sell snow to Eskimos, except the Eskimos already have better snow that costs less and actually works when you need it to. Asian riders have access to incredibly reliable, efficient motorcycles from manufacturers who actually understand what customers want. Transportation that works, costs reasonable money, and doesn't require a second mortgage to maintain. Why would they choose a Harley that costs 3 times as much, uses twice as much fuel, and breaks down twice as often? The irony is that while Harley dreams of conquering Asia, Asian manufacturers have already conquered America. Walk through any American parking lot and count the Hondas, Toyotas, and Hyundais versus the Harley-Davidsons. Spoiler alert, you'll run out of fingers counting the Asian vehicles before you spot your first Harley. But sure, let's take this winning strategy to their home turf and see how that works out. But here's the really funny part. Harley's idea of global expansion probably involves taking their American models and just shipping them overseas without any real adaptation to local conditions, preferences, or budgets. It's like McDonald's trying to expand to India by only selling beef burgers. Different markets have different needs, different regulations, different riding conditions, and different budgets. A motorcycle that makes sense in Milwaukee might be completely impractical in Mumbai, where traffic is dense, roads are crowded, and fuel efficiency actually matters. If global expansion dreams seem delusional, vision number 3 is the first strategy that actually makes complete sense, which means Harley will probably find a way to mess it up. Now we're getting into actually sensible territory, which means we're probably misunderstanding something fundamental, or Harley will find a way to screw it up spectacularly. Harley's electric-first strategy with gas backup means they want to lead with electric, but keep gas options available. It's like having your cake and eating it too, except the cake costs $40,000. This actually makes sense because it hedges their bets in a way that Harley rarely does. Usually they go all in on bad ideas and double down when they start failing. Electric is clearly the future, and even the most stubborn gas engine enthusiasts can see the writing on the wall. But the infrastructure isn't quite there yet. Charging times are still an issue for long rides, and range anxiety is real. Gas is reliable, familiar, and has a century of infrastructure behind it. You can find gas stations everywhere, fill up in 5 minutes, and ride for 300 miles without worrying about finding a charging station that actually works. But it's eventually going away whether we like it or not. So why not offer both and let customers choose based on their actual needs, instead of forcing them into one camp or the other? It's like a restaurant offering both regular and gluten-free options. You're not alienating anyone, you're covering all your bases. The electric riders get their instant torque, silent operation, and environmental credentials, while the gas riders get their familiar rumble, long range, and quick refueling. It's a win-win situation, which is probably why Harley will find a way to turn it into a lose-lose situation. Of course, this is Harley we're talking about, so they'll probably find a way to screw it up in ways we haven't even imagined yet. Maybe they'll make the electric version cost twice as much as the gas version for no apparent reason. Maybe they'll make both versions unreliable in completely different ways. The real test will be whether they can make both versions actually good instead of just different flavors of mediocre. Their current electric offering, the Live Wire, is like a proof of concept that nobody asked for at a price nobody can afford. We're entering the game-changing part of Harley's vision number 2 now. If electric first seemed smart, their younger demographics focus addresses their biggest weakness in a way no one saw coming. Finally, Harley realizes that their average customer age is approaching retirement home territory, and their typical buyer is closer to collecting Social Security than collecting speeding tickets. This younger demographics focus means they want younger riders, which is great news for anyone under 60 who's been feeling left out of the Harley experience. The challenge is that younger riders want completely different things than the traditional Harley customer. They want reliability because they can't afford to miss work when their bike breaks down. They want affordability because they have student loans that will outlive them. They want performance because they grew up with sport bikes that can outrun most Harleys while using half the gas. You know, all the things Harley has been actively avoiding for the past decade, like they're allergic to customer satisfaction. It's like a restaurant that only serves liver and onions suddenly trying to attract vegetarians. But here's the thing about younger riders that Harley seems to consistently underestimate. They're not stupid. They can do math, they can compare prices, they can read reliability ratings, and they can spot marketing BS from a mile away. They're not going to buy a Harley just because it says Harley on the tank if there are better options available for less money. Brand loyalty has to be earned, not assumed, and it has to be earned with every single purchase. Younger riders don't have the emotional attachment to the Harley brand that older riders do. They didn't grow up watching Easy Rider or Sons of Anarchy. They grew up watching YouTube reviews and reading online forums. The good news is that younger riders are actually interested in motorcycles. The bad news is that they have options, and most of those options are better than what Harley currently offers in terms of price, performance, and reliability. Even Indian is eating Harley's lunch in the cruiser market by making bikes that look classic but actually work properly and don't cost more than a luxury car. It's embarrassing when your main competitor is doing a better job of being Harley than you are. And here's the bombshell announcement that literally no one predicted for the final part of Harley's new vision. It could make or break the brand's future, and it's already in motion. And here we are, the vision that actually makes sense and addresses real problems with real solutions. Harley's entry-level market re-entry strategy acknowledges they want back into the market they abandoned faster than a Sportster owner abandoning their bike after their first Ducati test ride. This is absolutely huge because it addresses their biggest, most fundamental problem. Nobody can afford their bikes anymore. Their cheapest bike costs more than many people's cars. Their mid-range bikes cost more than most people's annual income, and their most expensive bikes cost more than most people's houses. Their new small electric bike is supposedly going to cost around $5,000, which is still more expensive than a Honda Grom. But hey, baby steps towards sanity. At least they're moving in the right direction, instead of adding more chrome and charging an extra 10 grand for the privilege. The beautiful thing about this strategy is that it's actually based on reality instead of wishful thinking and corporate ego. Honda has sold 750,000 Groms because people want small, fun, affordable bikes that they can actually buy without financing their soul to the devil. It's not rocket science. Make something people want at a price they can afford, and they'll buy it. Make it reliable, and they'll buy another one. Make it fun, and they'll tell their friends. It's a basic business that somehow became revolutionary thinking at Harley-Davidson. But here's what makes this really smart. Entry-level bikes create lifelong customers. The person who buys a small Harley at 25 might buy a bigger Harley at 35 when they have more money. They might buy a touring Harley at 45 when they want to take long trips. But if you price them out at 25, they'll go to Honda and stay there forever. It's like dating. You don't start with marriage proposals and demands for joint bank accounts. You start with coffee, see if you like each other, build a relationship over time. But Harley's approach has been like walking up to strangers and demanding they marry you immediately and also give you $50,000. The challenge will be making an entry-level bike that still feels like a Harley instead of just a generic motorcycle with Harley badges slapped on it. Because if it's just another small bike that happens to say Harley on the tank, people will see right through it faster than they see through Harley's marketing claims about reliability. And here's the really encouraging part. This strategy doesn't require them to abandon their premium bikes or alienate their existing customers who can afford the expensive stuff. They can still make expensive touring bikes for wealthy riders. It's not either or, it's both and, which is a concept that Harley seems to have forgotten. The key is execution, and execution has never been Harley's strong suit. They need to make these entry-level bikes actually good, not just cheap. They need to be reliable enough that new riders don't get stranded cursing the day they decided to trust Harley. They need to be fun to ride and genuinely competitive with other options in the market. Will it work? Who knows? This is still the company that thought a $22,000 electric bike was a good idea. But at least they're trying to remember what made them successful in the first place, making motorcycles that regular people could afford to buy, maintain, and enjoy without going bankrupt in the process. Don't fall for Harley's promises until you see this. Click the next video now to discover more motorcycles that actually deliver on reliability and value.